And a good afternoon, everybody. Chris McDonald with you on this Wednesday, the 11th day of October, 2023. We're grateful that you're with us this afternoon. We've got my dear buddy Eric Caron on the phone with us, and we're going to put his picture up here. At the risk of every reputable individual in the world, I will put his picture up. But, man, he's still bald-headed even in a picture. Are you bald-headed on the phone? I just want to make sure. Are you still bald-headed?
Yeah, brother, I'm still better looking too.
Yeah, that is. I'm not going to argue that point with you, but you know, anyway, man, it's good to see. Look, you're overseas this afternoon. We're going to get you on live in person when you come back, but I couldn't let this week go out without talking to you with everything going on. Eric, you've been. It's good to have you, by the way, man. Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure to have you. Listen, I want you to delve into a little bit because you've been sort of predicting this, Eric. You've been telling everybody, warning everybody that this was coming. What happened Saturday? Unfortunately, it's been a grotesque display of barbarism by the Hamas group, but the one with the fingerprints on it is not even Hamas. It's Iran. And I remember the last show that you was on, we were wrapping it up, and I asked you the question again, who's the greatest threat to this country? And you said that Iran was the most serious political, geopolitical, national security threat that America and Israel had. These people, Eric, no shame, and they are... They've got their hands on this proxy war that has turned very bloody and very ugly. 22 Americans are dead as of this afternoon. 3,500 wounded Israelis and numerous hostages unaccounted for, including some Americans. The death toll has been sort of changing each day. We heard 1,200 2 days ago. It went down to 1,000 yesterday. They've got it back up to around 1,300 today. So I don't know exactly what the death toll is, but it's been a deadly war, and we're just 5 days in, brother. And what say you in all this? Because it's very it's a serious situation, and I'm going to talk about some things that have been out there. We'll share with you about what the Hamas people are threatening this Friday, and I'll get your thoughts on that. But what's your thoughts on what's happened so far?
Yeah. Well, Chris, thank you for having me. You know, as you know, I'm coming to you tonight. This evening from Africa.
Yes.
I am in Tanzania doing some training for the East African nations in the area of law enforcement training. And let me just say to you, Chris, and to your audiences, once again, Iran has, for many, many years, they have declared war against Israel and against the United States. we, America, just have not declared war against them, and we've been trying to appease them. And as you know, in the last month, the Biden administration has pledged to give $6 billion, that's with a B, $6 billion back to Iran. We've released exchange prisoners that the U.S. government, FBI, and Homeland Security, as you know, I was a former Homeland Security special agent, charged with providing U.S. technology to Iran, and we released them back to Iran. America needs to really wake up. We are, in fact, at war. Now, I don't need the White House or any other politician to tell me that tonight. And I hope your audience, I hope America realizes that. We are at war with Iran. And they have shown themselves once again. I mean, we forget that they are responsible over the last 2 decades for the deaths of thousands of Americans. But we have short-term memory. They are responsible for the Beirut bombing, the Marines who died. They're responsible for the embassy takeover and the execution of our CIA station chief. So they have blood on their hands. They have declared war against America. They are using Hamas and Hezbollah to attack America and the Israelis. And it's about time we declare war against Iran.
Are we going to do that?
Unfortunately, we will not do that. We will not do that under this administration. We will continue to appease them and play this diplomatic, if you will, game. We are concerned with offending maybe Egypt or Lebanon or Saudi Arabia or the UAE. We have to understand that we have to stand not just for ourselves up, but we have to stand for Israel. And, Israel, as you know, is surrounded by countries that wish their destruction. There's no doubt about it. Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, and many other countries in the region wish for their destruction. They may say something, if you will, publicly, diplomatically, but they, for all intents and purposes, they support Hamas and Hezbollah and the Iranian, if you will, war machine. There's no doubt about it. So, unfortunately, Chris, we are at war. And the next few months, it could very well be brought to America. I mean, nobody wants to talk about it. Everyone's afraid to even mention that. But I'm going to mention it because information is power. And I want your viewers to understand that we are at war. We need to prepare. What we saw in Israel may be coming to America. We should assume it's coming to America. It did come to America on 9/11, and the Hamas, Hezbollah, and other terrorists who are in America today, tonight, will execute plans. They will try to execute plans to attack America. We just have to be ready, and hopefully we can prevent those attacks, but some of them, unfortunately, will happen because we saw what happened in Israel. As hard as they are, as far as their border security, they've hardened their borders over the last decade in Israel. They were still able, the bad guys, if you will, the terrorists, were still able to infiltrate. And America, as you know, over the last 2 years, is wide open to bad guys. And unfortunately, a lot of the technology that the Hamas, Hezbollah, and others utilize to attack Israel comes from, you guessed it, America. Because their agents here in America steal U.S. dual-use technology and military technology to be shipped back to back to Iran for their terrorist use, and to provide that technology to terror groups like Hamas and Hezbollah. Like those drones, the drones that are used to attack Israel, many of those drones come from Iran. And the Iranian technology, some of that Iranian technology comes from America. That's why we need border security. Not only making sure bad guys and bad things, such as drugs and other contraband that may come into America, is not allowed to come into America, but we also need safeguards to make sure the goods that leave America is not U.S. military technology being illegally exported to such countries like Iran. But the Biden administration has decimated the Department of Homeland Security. Their agents that are responsible for the investigations of the illegal exportation of dual-use and military technology, they've been decimated under the Biden administration. There's very few investigators, agents doing the exportation of U.S. technology to these countries. So we are very, very vulnerable to operational attacks by terrorists in America right now. And unfortunately, a lot of that technology is in fact being used against us, as it did against armed forces in Iraq. So some of those IEDs that were used in Iraq by the Revolutionary Guard in Iran, operating in Iraq, a lot of those IEDs, Chris, was made by U.S. technology. And how do I know that? I know that because I was specifically involved in operations arresting Iranians here and around the world who provided U.S. technology to the Revolutionary Guard. Because when those explosives went off, we had good guys sweeping up those IED technology and seeing the chips and other components that came from the U.S. So Chris, we are very, very vulnerable. We need to declare war against Iran, but unfortunately, this administration will wait until many thousands of Americans are dead.
All right, let me ask you this. All right, I get the fact that we're not going to declare war, but the other question then, Eric, goes to Israel. Netanyahu can declare war, and I think that he is going to... hang on just a second. I think that he's got the power with him, and I think he's got most of the world on his side with this, Eric, to do what he needs to do. And do you see him going after Iran? Because I don't think it stops with Hamas. I think Benjamin Netanyahu needs to bomb the living SHI capital T BS out of every military target in Iran. Kill their oil, destroy their oil refineries, because a lot of the money, Eric, that is being funneled into these terrorists are coming from the oil. You cut Iran's oil off, you cut the head of the snake off, you cut the money off. And the money is how these terrorists are getting paid. Look, this was a sophisticated, highly financed operation, and it's still going on day 5. We've got an update coming on right behind you about what's happening over there. And look, Israel this afternoon, the first part of this was southern, the Hamas coming in from the West Bank and Gaza. Well, this attack today was from Hezbollah, because the rockets are raining down in the northern part from Hezbollah, very similar to what happened over the weekend, and then Syria has jumped into this. Do you think that Israel
Hezbollah in Lebanon. Hezbollah from Lebanon.
Lebanon,
yep.
Exactly. But do you think Israel goes after Iran and Lebanon?
I do. I mean, we've seen some missiles being fired into Lebanon over the last 48 hours.
Yes.
I've been keeping a close eye on the news here in Africa from the BBC and Al Jazeera. Say what you want about Al Jazeera and the BBC, but they have reporters on the ground in the Middle East, right in the middle of the fighting. And so, yeah, I mean, I do see Israel. There's reports tonight that Israel has formed an emergency government. Tonight, it's breaking here. Anyways, I'm not sure if you've seen the news.
That's true. We're hearing the same thing over here.
So Israel's army says at least 1,200 Israelis have been killed and more than 2,700 wounded in the Hamas attack. The numbers relating to the Palestinian people are about the same. But I do see the Israeli government over the next few months, quite frankly, taking a hard stance against Iran. Now, Joe Biden and the White House, if you will, are taking a mild, if moderate stance against Hamas. But let's see what happens over the course of the next few weeks, because something tells me that the Biden administration, when the Israeli government continues to be on the offense, I see the Biden administration trying to take the diplomatic, if you will, road and tell Israel to back off when the Israeli government starts to target Hamas leaders around the world, especially in Europe and other parts of the Middle East. They're going to try to cut the head of the snake off. Many of the Palestinian government officials, Hamas officials, have fled into neighboring countries and into Europe. The Mossad will target those people. And so the real test will be in the coming months, and whether or not the U.S. government and other governments stand behind Israel when they start to target and kill the Hamas leaders in other countries.
Other countries. Well, speaking of other countries, I'm going to ask you this, because you got your pulse and hands on all these other nations you've been in. What was your thoughts when you heard that Turkey, Iraq, certainly Iran, but Russia and China, Eric, and other nations, are probably Venezuela's another one, are basically chiming in and saying to Israel, if you carry out this campaign against Hamas in the Palestinian territories, not really, I hate to use that word, in that area of the Gaza Strip, it's Israel's territories, but they're going to send fighters and all this. Is that a threat that we should take seriously, or is that just blather and a bunch of talk? Because I personally don't. We had James R. on last night, and he sort of went against the grain, and he said that he did not believe that these Arab leaders want to get involved in this right now, that they're sort of waiting to see what happens, because this is a messy image. This is an image killer for the Arab world, Eric, because when you start beheading babies, raping women, killing families, pillaging villages, killing the elderly, cutting off the heads of soldiers. Yep. It's not a good PR look for Islam, is it? Just ain't a good look for these peaceful, loving Muslims.
No. Exactly. And it affects business. It affects trade and travel.
Exactly.
And so, for instance, in the United Arab Emirates, where I served for over 3 years, the last thing the UAE wants is a war in the region, because it affects their business and trade and travel. And so, yeah, I mean, they do not. Some of these nations, as much as they dislike Israel, privately and publicly, they don't want all-out war. Because think about it, we're looking at probably a million refugees from the Gaza Strip going into Jordan or Egypt. They don't. Jordan, Egypt, and other nations, Lebanon, they do not have the capacity, if you will, to handle all these refugees. And so they don't want, say, a wider war with Israel. So it's going to be interesting. I don't know. I think Israel right now, tonight, as I speak, what I see is the Israeli government will take off the gloves for the next few months.
Okay.
This is not going to be over in a week. This is not going to be over in 2 weeks. We're talking months of campaigning and targeting Hamas and destroying Hamas now. And, unfortunately, yes, innocent people will die based on these strikes that the Israelis will carry out in the West Bank. But right now, Israel has no choice but to destroy Hamas and any other organization, if you will, who have publicly said death to Israel and death to the United States. Unfortunately, the United States has not really taken these threats seriously against themselves. And so we will see. I mean, you mark my word, Chris. I don't wish it, but in the coming months, we will see individuals or cells operating in America and trying to execute retaliatory strikes in America.
All right. Let me ask you something, and I'm going to deal with this on the recap of Friday, October 13th, 2 days from now. The Hamas leader put out a moratorium, Eric, basically calling for a day of jihad across the world and basically American targets especially, and so forth. Now, you, again, have your finger on this. Do you take that seriously, or do you think it's just blather, or what is your what's your thoughts on that?
No, listen. Yeah, Chris, I think we have to take these terrorists at their words.
Let me before you go into that, let me just read this. Okay, I want to read it in its entirety.
Please.
Give me 1 second. I want to read it. I'm going to put it up on the screen here so people can see it. And that way.
Yeah, this is not. I think it's important. I think it's important that you read it, Chris. I think it's important that your viewers and the American people realize this is not Eric.
Yeah,
Caron
this I want
this is not Chris.
Exactly. I want to read this. This is really. She says the former head of Hamas just gave a global call for Muslims worldwide, and especially those living in America, to commit acts of jihad warfare against non-Muslims this Friday. Hamas is calling on people in the Muslim world to, quote, sacrifice themselves. Former Hamas chief Khalid Michel called for protests, aka jihad, saying we must head to the squares and streets of the Arab and Islamic world on Friday. To all scholars who teach jihad, to all who teach and learn, this is a moment for the application of theories. Now, when you say application of theories, Eric, and you're talking about Islamic jihadism, their theory is you cut the heads off of Christians and Jews, correct? Of course, in these bastards' cases, they don't stop with Christians and Jews. These bastards want to cut the head off of babies. And they want to cut their heads off of children and soldiers and put guns to children's head and tie them up with handcuffs and put bullets in their head like a bunch of barbaric, savage SOBs. And again, I don't mean this to be ugly to the Muslims, but Eric, this bullshit that the Muslims is a peaceful, loving nation, I think they've got a little PR problem because a peaceful, loving religion don't cut the heads off of babies, correct?
Yes, sir. Chris, you're absolutely correct. We have to take them at their words. There are radical Muslims who are calling for the destruction of Israel and the United States tonight, and they've been doing this, not just tonight, but they've been doing this for decades. We just haven't paid close attention.
Thank you, Eric.
to it. It's about time.
Exactly.
It's about time that the Muslims in America, the good Muslims, stand up and start protesting against the Muslim extremists who vow the destruction of Israel and vow the destruction of the United States, and who are waging war against America. Where are the good Muslims?
They're nowhere to be found.
We need to see them on the streets. We need to see them on the streets. We need to see them protesting against radical Islam and telling the world we do not support the killing of innocent people and women in the name of Islam. That's what the good Muslims should be doing. And, Chris, Friday, as you know, is Holy Day. Is their holy day. And, it's unfortunate that the Sabbath, if you will, is in their eyes a day that should be used to kill and maim good, innocent people. And I think we should take them at their words. It's unfortunate, but again, they've declared war against America and Israel. We need to take off the gloves and declare war against them.
Yeah, but let me just, I'm looking at some of the headlines here, Eric, on Google and other outlets. The FBI, and I've got a anonym for the FBI that I can't say on this show this afternoon because it's a family show, but I'll just put it like this. The last two words are bumbling idiots, okay, and I'll let the people figure out what the F part of that word is.
Yeah.
But this agency is out there telling us all today that there is no threat from Hamas, that there's no specific threat from Hamas. You got a specific threat now, and they're still telling the American people this afternoon, no sweat it, don't sweat it, no big deal, don't, there's no threat. Eric, the very fact, look, the very second that the first missile hit Israel, America came under threat. The first second an American died and blood was shed by these Islamic jihadist terrorists. And by the way, for the left out there, the liberals that have a mental disorder, if you need me to draw and crown what a terrorist is and what it means, I'll be glad to do it for you anytime and let you define this. They're not militants, they're not freedom fighters, they're terrorists, they're murderers, they're rapists, they are murderers. And they are terrorists, and they are a threat to America, just like they are Israel. Now, if I need to draw that and take a little color crayon and draw that to you like a fifth grader, I will. Because, Eric, I'm getting a little hot under the collar with this left media that is trying to convince us that these people are just oppressed, they're misunderstood, and the Black Lives Matter people out there telling us today that if we were living under such oppressive conditions, we would revolt too and all this stuff. These people were cutting the heads off of babies, Eric. It had nothing to do with oppression. They want to see America destroyed and Israel. But the FBI is telling us today that there's no specific threat against America. When you hear crap and bullshit like that, what is your thought? It makes my hair want to go like yours. I want to pull my hair out and become Eric Hair in a second.
Well, listen, all we have to do is look at the latest headlines in the last 48 hours. We know Americans are being killed in Israel. We know that the American flag, along with the Jewish flag, is being burnt in Iraq by Muslim Iraqis in Iraq. We know that the FBI has well over 1,000 joint terrorism task force cases going on in the U.S. And we know that Homeland Security and FBI, they have dozens, I know because I was involved in them, dozens of cases involving Iran, the Iranian agents that are in America attempting to acquire technology for their drones, for their missile programs, for the WMD. When I say WMD, that's weapons of mass destruction. That's nuclear, biological, chemical, missile technology programs. Their agents are in America. Homeland Security has dozens of open, active investigations tonight against Iranian agents attempting to acquire U.S. technology to be sent back to Iran for their WMD programs. So we are under threat. We are under serious threat tonight. The FBI, they don't want to, if you will, incite, America. They want to, along with the Biden administration, try to tell the American people that everything's fine. But unfortunately, Chris, it's too late, when something very, very bad happens. And then we're going to be hearing, what happened? What happened? When something bad happens, God forbid, but it will, it's only a matter of time. When something bad happens, then what does the FBI or the Department of Justice say? Because right now we're hearing nothing to be concerned about.
Yeah, that's
but
exactly
I can tell you,
that's what the communique today said. It said that the FBI shows no threat. You know who they're worried about? I have a report that we just posted on Telegram, Eric. Do you realize that the report out yesterday? Do you know who the FBI is checking on? They're checking on Trump supporters.
White supremacists.
They're checking on Trump supporters.
Well, the MAGA Republicans are the biggest threat to America.
Yeah, that's who they're checking on right now.
Yeah, we're worried about parents at school board meetings. We're worried about the anti-abortion protesters, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But the real threat, the real serious threat to America is by Iran and their agents, such as Hamas and Hezbollah, Al-Qaeda, ISIS, that are operating around the world, including America. I mean, I can tell you in Africa, Al-Qaeda, ISIS is operating in all countries here in Africa. It's a very serious threat from Tanzania to Kenya to many other countries that Al-Qaeda and ISIS are operating in tonight. That's the real threat that America should be concerned about tonight. Certainly not parents protesting relating to the indoctrination of their children, relating to LGBTQ or any other social, if you will, issues that the liberals want to teach their children. The real threat is from the terrorists operating worldwide, including America.
Let me ask you a question. We got about 5 minutes with you, and I've got to wrap this up. And I'm going to get you back on, brother. Listen, a couple of questions. I said something to you. I said something to you earlier that you're probably safer right there in Tanzania tonight than we are here in America, and I mean that. But if you were advising people, and I'm with you 1,000,000%. Look, I think that this is something that I don't think they're blathering. Now, what they do in reality, like in other words, what they do in real time remains to be seen. But I would, I'm not going to let a bunch of punk terrorists change my lifestyle, Eric, and walk around shaking like a chicken. But I would advise people this afternoon to be diligent. I've been telling them that from day one because, look, as I said, the second that the first attack hit Israel Saturday, America became under alert. We should. That was an attack on us. But I do believe that if you're in bigger cities, that you need to be very vigilant and diligent and alert and sober and sound mind thinking as to your surroundings and be very careful and just to be alert. I think that's a fair, pretty level-headed feeling this afternoon, correct?
100%. We got to get switched on. No pun intended. But, my book, Switched On, The Heart and Mind of a Special Agent, is really talks about the need for as individuals, as families, as cities and towns and states, and as a country, we need to get switched on. We need to, being switched on is a coat of armor that protects us from all threats, both in our physical and emotional world. And we need a strong mind. We need a strong body. We need a strong soul. They're equally important. They all need to be fed daily to help us identify and avoid and escape threats. So you're absolutely right. We are under attack. There's evil lurking, of course, every day, every night. And a good way, Chris, to predict the future is by looking at the past. And we've seen the destruction in Israel just in the last few days.
Yes.
But do we need to look at our own country relating to 9/11, where 3,000 Americans died at the hands of Muslim extremists?
The same people. Eric, the same people. It's the same people, just a different brand. They just may not be called Al-Qaeda, but they're ISIS, Hamas. They're all the same snake.
Yes.
They're just a different spot on the same snake.
Thank you. That's it. So, again, let's look at the past. If we're wondering, is this possible? Are we being hysterical? Is Eric being hysterical? Is Chris being hysterical? No, not at all. We just have to look at the past, ladies and gentlemen, to be able to predict the future. We look at the past, and we look at 9/11. We look at the attacks on our USS Cole. We look at the attacks at the U.S. Marines in Beirut, Lebanon, by Iran. We look at the attacks on our soldiers in Iraq by Iran. We look at what happened just in the last few days in Israel, and where thousands of terrorists stormed into Israel, land, air, and sea. Is that coming to America? You know what? I hope not, but we better prepare for it.
Yeah, buddy. Listen, man, we're out of time here today with you. I'm going to get you back on when you get back. When are you going to be back?
Probably in about a week or so, Chris.
Okay. When you get back, we may do another phone interview before then, but the second you land in America, holler at me, and maybe next week,
God bless.
We'll get you. But listen, man, I want you, before you go, couple of final thoughts. Do you see this turning global? Does this turn into a global war, or do you think Israel contains it? It's done. I know it's going to take months, but do you think Israel handles this by herself, or do we have to? Or do you see America getting involved in it?
Well, we have right now. We know that the American government have repositioned the aircraft carrier in the Middle East. We know that armaments have just been delivered on the ground to Israel by the U.S. government in the last few hours. That's been documented, if you will. That's been talked about. The American government has already provided the Israelis with weapons and armaments. I do think Israel will. My guess, educated guess, the Israelis will contain this in the West Bank and will eradicate Hamas from the West Bank. I do think the Mossad, the Israeli government, will target the Hamas leadership around the globe. I do see Hamas, Hezbollah, and others globally now will go on the offense in America, in Europe, and target, much like a guerrilla warfare, in those countries.
Okay. So the bottom line is, not to use a term, we need to be switched on in the next several days, and we need to be alert. in this nation. And,
Yes.
and I'm just going to say it again,
100%.
Eric. If we're dependent on this government, you know, I saw a meme one time. It had Hillary and Obama, and you could throw Joe Biden in that picture, and it says, if your life depends on these two, you can kiss your ass goodbye. If you're dependent on this government to protect you, you can kiss it goodbye, because they ain't going to protect you. You got to protect yourself out there. Is that a fair statement, bro?
Well, Chris, once again, let me just say, relating to your statement that you just made, let's just look at the past. The American ambassador in Libya
Yep.
was attacked and killed, and others were attacked and killed. And what do we do under the under the Barack Obama Biden administration?
Nothing.
What do we do? Nothing. Exactly. So if our ambassador, who represents the President of the United States, is essentially executed, and others that supported him in his security detail were executed, and what did we do? We did nothing. So you're right. You know, under this administration, there'll be some tough talk, but you know, I wouldn't hold my breath.
Yeah, I wouldn't hold it either, brother. Well, listen, man, I appreciate you much, and I'll be in touch with you. And if there's any breaking news, I may pull you in on a late night, and we'll talk again, okay? So,
Yep.
hang loose. Be safe over
brother.
there, brother. Be safe coming back. Bless your friend.
Stay switched on, and folks, go to Switched On Life. The audio book and the hard copy books are there too, as far as my story, and Amazon as well, Chris. And I want to thank you for having me, and God bless. And I hope America and your viewers, if you will, stay switched on. God bless.
God bless you, friend. Talk soon, Eric. You take care, man. Eric Caron, everybody. We're grateful that Eric could be with us this afternoon, and we hope you enjoyed that. And we're going to be here with you for a few more minutes. I've got several things I want to run down with you. The latest this afternoon that is coming out of Israel is the northern flank of the nation is under attack. We'll get to that more in a minute, but I do want to play a few videos. And this is Libby Weiss. I saw her on Newsmax, and there's breaking news with the House Speaker that, in light of everything else, is the least of my worries. But all I can tell you is that you exchanged one rhino for another in the House today, and I'll just leave it at that. But this is Libby Weiss. I want you to listen to what she has to say about Hamas and why they're doing this. And it's a very good video. It's probably about 1 minute and 32 seconds. Listen to this, and this is really sums it up beautifully as to why what happened Saturday's happening. And when you sort of break the onion down to the root cause, this is well said. Roll the tape.
It's time to set the record straight on Israel's border with Gaza. Hamas seized power in Gaza in 2007 and has controlled it since. Rather than investing in infrastructure to support their own civilians, Hamas has been investing millions and millions of dollars in terrorist infrastructure to kill Israeli civilians. That was Hamas's choice.
That was
Israel
the Palestinian
maintained two
people's
crossings
choice.
into Gaza. Erez crossing in the north and Kerem Shalom in the south. On a normal day, you would see people, merchandise, food, and supplies crossing into Gaza. But on Saturday, October 7th, Hamas launched a brutal and barbaric attack on Israel. Hamas slaughtered hundreds of Israelis, injured thousands, and abducted dozens of innocent Israelis
and
into
Americans.
Gaza. Hamas bombed the crossing into Gaza and murdered the IDF soldiers stationed there. They destroyed the crossing and live streamed their rampage. So yes, those crossings between Israel and Gaza are closed. As we continue to fend off daily attacks from Hamas terrorists, we will not be giving Hamas any supplies or materials. We are at war with Hamas. This is a war they started. We have no legal obligation to supply our enemy with anything. The Israel Defense Forces has no choice. We are here to protect our families.
And that is Libby Weiss. She's with the IDF. That was probably a good summer. Now, when she did that, evidently the death toll was in the hundreds. It's now up to 1,200. And we've had nearly 3,500 wounded in Israel. The insanity over here in this country continues. And I want to roll you a couple of tapes here this afternoon. We don't have any of the latest figures. I've got a friend that lives in Haifa. She immediately messaged me early this afternoon through Facebook that she was okay. And I asked her point blank, I said, we heard the alarms went off. And she said that those sirens were hacked. And that, to her knowledge, she's not 100% sure whether the news reports of the northern flanks being done is true. And where she's at, she says she didn't see anything. But Gateway Pundit, Breitbart, and other outlets have been reporting this afternoon that the Hezbollah missiles have been coming in and raining down on Israel from Lebanon. That I don't doubt. I did see a story last night before I went to bed that there are hackers, computer hackers, that are getting involved with the siren systems in Israel, trying to create undue fear and undue, fright in the Israeli population, and they're doing it as a act of defiance and rebellion against the Israeli government. So, folks, it's a complete mess over there. But in the middle of that mess over there, you've got a populace over here in America that's just lost its blank mind. And this is not Gaza Strip. This is not, again, Tehran, Iran. This is not Saudi Arabia. This ain't Cairo, Egypt. This ain't Baghdad, Iraq. This ain't Amman, Jordan. This is not in Syria. This is in Dearborn, Michigan last night. Roll the tape. The good old US of A. 22-second clip. Thousands met last night in Dearborn. Those are not American flags. Those are not Israeli flags. Those are Palestinian flags. I want to ask these clowns in Dearborn last night, I'm wondering, just asking for a friend, when you're waving that Palestinian flag and the Hamas flag, and you're waving that, and oh, Israel is such an oppressor. I got to play another video because this is the Black Lives Matter. I'll play this video and then I'll ask my question. This is the head of the Chicago-based Black Lives Matter group, and her explanation of why Hamas did what they did in the cutting the head off the baby stuff. Black Lives Matter at their best. Watch this.
Do you know how long it takes to gaslight yourself to actually believe that oppressed people will one day not want to rise up against their oppressor? How can you place someone under such extreme circumstances and not expect for them to one day be like, I'm done? Hypothetically speaking, let's say that you live in a heavily policed apartheid state. You have minimal resources.
Let me stop her right there. They're not in a heavily policed apartheid statement. By the way, folks, let me give you a little quick history lesson. The Romans, when that temple of AD 70 was destroyed, the Romans sought to destroy the Jews. They kicked the Jews out of that area. They called it Palestine. Rome called it Palestine in defiance and rebellion of the Jewish people. But there were Jews that stayed in that area and cultivated it. When the Arabs came in and the Palestinian terrorists came in and all these people came in, they're not Palestinians. They're just plain thugs and terrorists. They were never Palestinians. That's a myth. That's just a figment of your imagination. Israel has never had an apartheid state. They're squatters on Israel's land, not the other way around. Not the other way around. And we're going to do a history of it. The Palestinians are screaming for a state. If you don't want an apartheid police state, then get your carcasses back to Jordan, because that was your homeland before you squatted on Israel's land. Now, the media will never tell you that, and deluded, spiritually ignorant, and otherwise ignorant folks like this chick needs a history lesson. I'm a little been wired up the last few days, folks, and if I'm sounding a little biting, a little, what's the word I'm looking for? A little crash, you just have to overlook it, because my dandruff's up. My dandruff's up because I'm getting a little bit sick. I'm beyond sick. I'm beyond vomiting sick of this, because this is a lie. It's not an apartheid state, but that's what it's being called. And the Black Lives Matter movement is basically using that narrative, as is the media, to justify the killing of Israelis. But I want to ask this chick, and I want to ask those folks in Dearborn, Michigan, are you telling me, looking me in the eye, Amano, that you are okay with the killing of babies? Because I'll play a few other clips about that in a minute. But this chick evidently is, because Israel's such a police apartheid state.
No military. Your opposition has the attention of the media, the empathy of the media. The strongest Western countries have already declared their support for them. And they possess the largest and strongest military in the Middle East, because they have full support and financial backings from most Western countries, including the United States. If you can call this a fair fight, then you need to go ahead and say that you are pro-ethnic cleansing and you are pro-Palestinian genocide. Because, baby, if the stats are looking like this and have been looking like this, and you're first...
Don't be calling me baby. I can't even read that. I've seen that chart. That was put out by a left-wing thing, the Palestinian conflict. By the way, I want to say it again, folks. They're not Palestinians. They're not Palestinians. That's a myth. It's a figment of a meth-induced generation that don't know history, have never been taught history. If they've listened to history, they've rejected it. That person evidently was tied to Black Lives Matter. She's a Black Lives Matter activist. Let me read you some of the Black Lives Matter stuff, and I got a few minutes. I've got about 13 minutes. I'm going to take them today. This is the Black Lives Matter. Me and James talked about this last night. They posted this video, this emblem on their thing in Chicago, folks. That is a threat. And I'll tell you why. It is the image of a parachuter that is how Hamas, they started attacking that party, those party gatherers. They parachuted in with guns, and it is being reported this afternoon or yesterday that the partygoers thought it was a joke. They thought it was part of the entertainment. And they found out real quick it wasn't entertainment. It was basically people about to kill them, rape them, murder them, cut their heads off, and everything else. But when Black Lives Matter posts this, folks, the Black Lives Matter, they are all in with Hamas. They're all in this afternoon with Hamas. This is their train. And it says, it's been 7 years since Black Lives Matter was formed. They have raised over $1 billion. They haven't had one neighborhood cleanup, sent one poor black child to college, brought school supplies, fed the hungry, donated the food, bank or provided housing to one poor black family. But I tell you what they can do. They can tell you and me and lecture us about an apartheid state. They can lecture us about an apartheid state with ignorance beyond words, because their co-founder, with his finger sticking up in the air, their brother, he thinks they're much better organizers than he was. That was an old story. That was way back in the day. This was back in the Ferguson. That was a quote from him back during the Ferguson, Missouri riots. By the way, they were behind that. They were behind the George Floyd riots. They've been behind all the riots in America. But anyway, I got more about the Black Lives Matter I'm going to deal with soon. But we'll leave that alone for right now. Now, today, these feckless congresswomen, the squad, AOC and Rashid Tlaib, they're a bunch of cowards too. Somebody confronted AOC, I think it was Laura Loomer, and I've met Laura. I've had her on my show one time. I'm trying to get her back. She'd come back, but Laura's a busy girl. But she got in the face of AOC today, and this was popcorn worthy. I'll let you watch the tape.
Why are you standing with people who openly support Hamas, a terrorist organization that kills Jewish people?
And babies.
You're so quick to talk on Twitter, but you can't even answer a question.
Can't even answer a question. She won't. And then there was this today, Rashid Tlaib, the one and only Palestinian flag flying Rashid Tlaib. And where is that video at? Did I download that? I sure thought I did. Oh, I'll maybe have to save that for tomorrow's update. But goodness gracious, hang on just 1 second. See if I got this video here. Give me 1 second, folks. Give me 1 second. Did I download it? I sure thought I did. I tell you what, we'll save that one for tomorrow. It's worth the popcorn too. But there was a reporter that went to her and said, "Miss Tlaib, do you support the cutting head off a baby?" She ran away from the camera. Wouldn't answer it. That's my question. To all you anti-Semites out there and all you Black Lives Matter supporters, to all you Palestinian militant supporters, are you telling me in good faith that you're on the side, morally, that you're on the side of those that would take an infant baby, 40 of them, folks, 40 of them. This ain't fake news, this ain't false news, this is news stories from the headlines. 40 infants, at least is what we know about. There probably is more. They cut their heads off. They just didn't kill them. They cut their heads off. They cut children's heads off. Put handcuffs on little children as young as 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 years old. Put guns to their head, blew them away, sometimes in front of their parents. Raped women. That came out today, that there's been a lot of women raped over the last 72 hours, that Hamas has basically done this, and in some cases maybe in front of their loved ones or husbands or whatever, and as a defiant act, left the women for dead. Debauchery and evil beyond words. So I'm going to ask these people that are waving Palestinian flags, that flag that they're waving in Dearborn, Michigan, and Chicago, Illinois, and New York City, and Miss AOC and Miss Rashid Tlaib that put a Palestinian flag in front of her thing. Is this what you support? If this is what you support, you are morally bankrupt. You are mentally unstable and unhinged. You are insane. That young lady, I don't pray any ill will against her, but that is a young lady that is mentally off. She's mentally challenged. She is mentally off. She has been basically deceived to a point that she will never see the truth. There's no way you could convince that young lady of anything else than what she just put out there, that Israel's an apartheid state, Israel's the aggressor, Israel's the one that did this, and America, by supporting Israel, is culpable with it too. Pretty much the Black Lives Matter narrative, that America's bad and we need to destroy American cities and burn down glasses and free Palestine, free Palestine. Let me tell, again, these anti-Semites this. Palestine was already freed. They're the ones that are on land that don't belong to them. Ariel Sharon, he paid a high price for what he did. Folks, had a stroke. He never spoke again. Had it not been for feckless leadership in this country and feckless leadership in Israel at the time, they wouldn't have the West Bank. But if I'm Benjamin Netanyahu this afternoon, I'm fixing this problem. Because there's no Palestinian state yet. And he's got every right, he's got every obligation to go in, and that little childlike chart that she had that's showing the Palestinians having been more killed than the Israelis. And I didn't even want to listen to the rest of it. I've seen it. And it's a chart that the left has made to show that the Palestinians have lost more lives over the years than the Israelis. Well, let me remind, again, these brainless people that the Israelis are not the ones going in, parachuting into parties and shooting families and shooting women and raping women and shooting men and beheading children and beheading babies. Israel's not the one doing that. You're doing that. And if you live by the sword, you're going to die by the sword. And if you do that kind of thing, you get everything you deserve. There's no mercy. There's no mercy under that. Sorry. And you have no right to bellyache about the conditions of your West Bank if you have put a terrorist organization over you. If you've put a terrorist organization over you, you deserve what you get. You deserve what you get. All right, folks. Again, Please, no chat right now. No chat today. We will take questions. If you got a question about this MacFiles form, I got more to talk about, but I'm out of time. And I'm trying to find that video, and I don't have it. By the way, one other final thing today, unrelated, but they had a vote in the House today, and this is your new speaker. This is your new speaker. And I hope the Republicans are proud of themselves. And I wasn't a fan of McCartney. I had Tony Branco. He's coming on. I interviewed Tony. We recorded an interview with Tony earlier. And it was down to Scalise and Jordan. Well, evidently, there's a story in CBS. I can't confirm it. 113 to 99. Steve Scalise is your new speaker. So, though not a fan of McCartney, I told you the other night, folks, the Republicans had a chance to do this right or do this wrong. They got it wrong. Roll the tape.
President Zelensky just gave an incredibly powerful address to Congress. And I think people got to see once again what we've been seeing for weeks, and that is just why President Zelensky is inspiring the people of Ukraine and people all around the world who are rallying behind these strong, incredibly tough people during a brutally difficult invasion by Putin. When President Zelensky showed that video, you really got to see firsthand the sheer brutality of what Putin is doing inside Ukraine. It was very difficult to watch. It was heartbreaking, but it shows you that there's nothing less than genocide going on in Ukraine by Putin and his army. And so as Zelensky made a plea to the United States, to President Biden, he's continued to reiterate that the people of Ukraine just want more tools to be able to defend their country, especially right now to be able to control the sky. And that's why getting these MiGs in immediately is so critical. The longer President Biden waits trying to figure out excuses to not offend Putin, it's costing lives in Ukraine. He's got to make that happen. It's a plea Zelensky continued to make, as well as a plea for other things that I think the American people want to do to give them the tools that they need to defend their country. So as we look where we are, this is another opportunity for America to step up too and take away Putin's leverage on energy. There's no reason that Putin should be pocketing hundreds of millions of dollars a day by selling oil to America and the United States when we could cut that off right now by opening up our reserves, opening up areas that have been closed by President Biden to leasing so that Putin does not have that leverage over America or Europe to finance this brutal invasion. So we're going to continue to stand with the people of Ukraine and pray for them that they're able to have the tools to defend themselves against what Putin's doing.
So, there's McCartney in the picture with him. Not a fan of either. But congratulations, Republicans. You basically left your House speakerless for 3 days to put one rhino in the place of another. You could have just kept McCartney, and we could have already had aid to Israel by this time. Way to go, boys. Smoke up, Johnny. You got Steve Scalise as your House Speaker, who, this was back when Zelensky was over here, was praising the Ukraine. Praising Zelensky. That's your next Speaker of the House. Smoke up, Johnny. And we wonder why things are like they are in D.C. There you go. There you go. All right. I could stay longer, but I've got other things to do. And I did want to come on and give you an update. We're going to try to do this again tomorrow. We're not sure how we're going to do it. No late show tonight. We got the Face Show coming on at 8 o'clock. But there are reports, there are confirmed reports that rockets are firing into Israel's northern part tonight. Now, they're already into the night. It's almost 11, almost midnight there. Our prayers for the Jewish people and our prayers for the victims of these barbaric murderers, folks. That's what they are. Now, on our Face Show tonight, we've been studying the book of Revelation. I'm not sure what we're going to be doing. We may take a pause and talk about the Israeli thing. Now, please, if you come into this faith network, We're not going to be taking questions. We're not going to be discussing it with you. We're going to teach. If you've got a question, macfilesforum@gmail.com. If you've got a comment, because we're going to probably do a Q&A, or if we do a late show tomorrow night, probably going to take questions off the forum. But I want to ask again as I leave this afternoon, these Palestinian supporters, these people waving these flags, are you okay with supporting when you're waving that flag and screaming about Israel's evil? And by the way, I'm going to extend this to the Q people. I'm going to extend this to the Q people. And Stu Peters out there that is, when Stu wrote in his blog, this dumb blog of his that said that we as Americans should not be supporting somebody that hates Jesus. Stu, have you looked around your own country? Have you looked around America? Do you not think we hate Jesus and hate God too? I will tell you something, Stu. Maybe you need to, of course, you probably don't have a pastor because Clay Clark's your man. You're part of his reawakening tour, and that should not surprise anybody. But I would remind you, Stu, that this country hates God. America hates God. And America hates Christ too, because we wouldn't be living the way we would if we did. We wouldn't be allowing homosexuals and transgenders to read storybooks to our kids at libraries if we didn't hate God. We wouldn't be allowing illegal aliens to run roughshod and terrorists in our country, and corruption in government to the point we can't even stomach it anymore, and corruption in our justice system that we can't even stomach it anymore. Corruption in financial markets, we can't even stomach it anymore. A war going on in Israel, and we can't even in our minds clarify what's evil and what's right. Not that Israel's perfect, but my God, folks, if you can't see that cutting the heads off of a baby and raping and murdering elderly people and women and kidnapping children from homes, if you can't see that that's evil, and yet you'll wave a flag supporting that, Stu. Anti-Semitism. And then again, we reek with anti-Semitism, and then we wonder why our nation's in the state it's in. Pretty easy to see to me. If you can't see that as being evil, you got 4 more problems than the Q pill you're smoking and the Q drug you're on. Because I'm saying this to the Q people too. If this is what you're willing to support, you might want to take a good hard look into something called your soul. Because it's dark. And it's demented. Listen, I'll see you tonight on the Face Show. I got to get out of here because I want to get to going. I'm a little wired up. I'm just telling you, folks. I know you probably sensed it in me. And I hope you have. And let me tell you something. I might as well go ahead and say it. I ain't got nothing to lose anyway. You need to be as fired up about it as me, if not worse. We better get fired up about it. We ain't going to have a country, folks, and we are under threat. And I would take this threat seriously, what's being put out there. I don't know exactly how and what they're going to do. If anything, it may be just blather. I don't know, but I would take it. Eric Caron said it, and I'm going to say it with him. You better take it seriously. Be alert, vigilant, and sober. Sober. Please. And I will see you when I see you. God bless you guys. I'll see you tonight on the Face Show. Until then, McDonald out on this Wednesday.